My name is Ethan Lawson. I'm 35 years old, and I built a tech empire worth $40 million. A fact my family never knew until one disastrous Thanksgiving dinner tore our lives apart. For most of my childhood, I lived in the shadow of my younger sister, Lily, the golden child who could do no wrong. Our parents adored her, protected her, praised her every minor success, while I existed quietly on the sidelines, expected to be the reliable one, the self-sufficient one, the son who needed nothing. I learned early that in our family, attention was a limited resource, and I was never the priority. I remember my 10th birthday vividly, not because it was special, but because it wasn't. I woke up to the sound of my parents rushing around the kitchen, packing Lily's dance costumes. My mother barely looked at me when she said, "There's cereal in the pantry. Honey, we'll celebrate later." Later never came. 3 months afterward, the entire neighborhood gathered for Lily's 8th birthday. Banners, a bounce house, a custom cake with her face painted on it. I served punch to her friends while my mother told everyone how proud she was of her helpful big brother. That day, I realized I existed only as a supporting character in Lily's story. My father, a meticulous accountant, measured everything in life by numbers except fairness. My mother, an anxious perfectionist, cared deeply about appearances but not about balance. Lily's just sensitive. They used to say whenever she cried or screamed until she got what she wanted. And I, calm, quiet, predictable, was praised only for staying out of the way. It wasn't praise, it was a sentence. By 12, I'd taught myself coding from library books, sneaking computer time late at night after Lily finished playing games. I was hungry to build something of my own, something they couldn't ignore. When I earned my first $20 fixing a neighbor's computer, I held those bills like a sacred promise. That was the moment I understood power didn't come from approval. It came from independence. The only person who saw my potential was my grandfather, Thomas, a self-made man who ran a construction business. He once told me, "You've got grit, Ethan. That'll take you farther than talent ever could." When he died my senior year, he left me $5,000 with a note that said, "For your first business venture, make it count." My parents were baffled, wondering aloud why he hadn't split it between both grandchildren. I didn't explain. I just filed the note in my wallet and made a silent vow. If they wouldn't notice me, I'd succeed so loudly they couldn't ignore it, but only when it was too late to claim any credit. Through high school, I worked quietly while Lily collected applause for mediocrity. When I made honor roll, my father called it expected. When Lily barely passed algebra, they took her out for ice cream. I learned to cook for myself, do my laundry, and plan my future without them. Every act of self-sufficiency hardened into something sharp, like armor. By 18, I'd saved $10,000 from computer repairs and combined it with my grandfather's gift. My parents didn't even know I had a bank account. When college acceptance letters came, they celebrated Lily's art school acceptance like she'd won a Nobel Prize. Mine, a scholarship to a top tech program, barely earned a nod. "You'll be fine," my father said. "We need to focus on helping your sister find her path." I packed my things, drove to campus alone, and moved into my dorm without so much as a family photo in hand. That was the last day I stopped expecting anything from them. College changed my life. My roommate, Derek, was everything I wasn't. Charismatic, bold, from a wealthy family that actually cared about his dreams. We clicked instantly. Together, we built an app meant to help students organize study groups. Within months, it spread to multiple universities. When our first investor offered $50,000, I stared at the number, hardly believing it was real. Derek asked if I'd tell my parents. I shook my head. Not yet. They wouldn't understand. While I was creating something from nothing, Lily dropped out of college after 3 semesters. My parents blamed her creative soul and remortgaged their house to fund her boutique. It closed in 8 months. They never asked what I was doing. They just assumed I had a regular tech job and student loans to pay off. And I let them believe that, because the truth was, I didn't owe them understanding anymore. By 27, our company had become a legitimate tech firm, our software protecting networks nationwide. My net worth quietly crossed 2 million. Yet I still drove an old sedan and rented a modest apartment. When I visited home that Christmas, my parents gifted Lily a down payment on a condo as a fresh start. I brought wine and sat quietly as they toasted to her resilience. My father looked at my car and said, "Sensible choice. Good gas mileage." He had no idea I could have bought the entire street if I'd wanted. The years blurred together after that. Success piled on success. But the recognition I once craved didn't matter anymore. Or so I thought. I bought my dream house through one of my corporations, hidden behind layers of privacy, and lived quietly. Lily's ventures failed one after another: jewelry design, photography, yoga studio, and my parents financed everyone. I listened politely to my mother's sighs about helping Lily find herself while I built something worth tens of millions. I never told them because deep down, I knew what would happen if I did. And I was right. The secret slipped out one November afternoon when I accidentally copied Lily's email on a confidential thread with our lawyers. Within hours, she had every detail about the $40 million deal our company was closing. Suddenly, my family rediscovered their interest in me. My phone lit up with calls, texts, messages dripping with warmth that felt rehearsed. My mother's voice on the phone was almost giddy. "We're expecting you for Thanksgiving. Ethan, it would mean so much to have everyone together." Of course, it wasn't about family. It was about money. I knew it the moment she said Lily's name. The drive home that Thanksgiving felt like crossing into a past I'd long buried. Every mile closer to my parents' house made my chest tighten. The house looked the same from the outside: white shutters, manicured lawn. But I noticed new furniture through the window, expensive pieces they never could have afforded on my father's salary. Maybe Lily's latest creative project had come with another parental bailout. I parked my car, grabbed the bottle of wine I'd brought as a polite gesture, and rang the doorbell instead of using my old key. I wasn't their boy coming home. I was a visitor now. My mother answered with a smile so wide it felt foreign. "Ethan, you made it." She hugged me tightly, as though trying to erase years of distance in one forced embrace. My father followed, grinning too broadly. "There's our businessman," he said, offering a handshake instead of a hug, like we were meeting at a conference. Over his shoulder, I saw Lily standing by the kitchen island, wineglass in hand, dressed in something designer, her smile polished and empty. "Look who finally decided to come home," she said. The mystery man himself. We moved into the living room, where my parents had laid out appetizers and an unusual number of expensive-looking bottles of liquor. The decor was different: modern art pieces, a high-end espresso machine on the counter, fresh landscaping visible through the window. For people who'd been tight on money, they suddenly seemed to be living comfortably. I wondered how much of it had been bought on loans or credit, expecting me to pick up the tab now. "So," my father began after a few minutes of awkward small talk, "business must be good." His tone was casual, but the eagerness underneath was impossible to miss. My mother chimed in. "We hardly know what you actually do. Sweetheart, maybe you can explain a little." "It's all so exciting." I kept my voice steady. "Data security. We help organizations protect sensitive information." Lily snorted softly. "That's a modest way to describe a $40 million deal." The room fell silent. My father cleared his throat, pretending not to have heard her, but his eyes flicked to mine, hungry for confirmation. "That information wasn't meant to be shared," I said quietly, looking straight at her. Lily shrugged, swirling her wine. "Well, I saw it. And honestly, I don't understand why you'd keep something like that a secret from your own family. Don't we deserve to know?" "Deserve," I repeated, my voice calm but sharp. "That's an interesting word." Dinner was ready soon after. My mother had gone all out. Every dish I'd ever loved as a kid. Foods she hadn't cooked in decades. The table was perfectly set, and for the first time in my life, I noticed something peculiar. I was seated at the head. My father usually sat there. Now he'd shifted down the table beside Lily, positioning me like the new patriarch. The message was loud and clear. Money had changed the seating arrangement. We ate in uneasy politeness until Lily couldn't take it anymore. She set down her fork and said, "All right, enough pretending. We know about your company. Ethan, we know about the 40 million, so why hide it? We're your family. You could have told us. I looked at her for a long moment, then said, because it was the one thing in my life that belonged entirely to me. My father frowned. Son, don't make this about old resentments. We supported you both the best we could. I almost laughed. Really? You supported Lily through every failed business, every impulsive idea, every mistake. You mortgaged the house for her boutique. You paid her condo down payment after a 3-month relationship. And me, you skipped my graduation for her art show. You forgot my birthdays, but made hers neighborhood events. My mother's lips trembled. That's not fair. We just knew you didn't need as much attention. You were always so independent. That wasn't independence, I said. That was neglect dressed up as confidence. Lily slammed her glass down. You're unbelievable. You think you're the victim? You've had it easy. Everything you touch turns to gold. No, Lily, I said softly. Everything I touch turns to something because I work for it. The air thickened. My father cleared his throat, trying to smooth things over. Look, maybe we made mistakes, but that doesn't change the fact that we're family, and family helps each other. You're in a position to make things easier for all of us. There it was. The real reason for this dinner, not love, not reconnection, transaction, help, I asked. You mean, pay off Lily's debts again, fund her next project, finance your retirement because you overextended yourselves saving her from her own decisions. My father's jaw tightened. Watch your tone. I leaned back, my voice calm but deadly steady. I'm done watching my tone. I watched it for 35 years while you ignored me. I watched it while you taught me that being overlooked was normal. I watched it while you made me invisible. Lily stood up suddenly, face flushed. You're rich now. Ethan, stop acting like some wounded child. You think money makes you better than us? I stood too, meeting her eyes. No, I think effort does. Then it happened. The moment that would become the punctuation mark on decades of resentment. Lily grabbed her glass, threw the wine across the table, and it splashed across my shirt like a red stain of everything we'd never said. My mother gasped. My father froze. I calmly set down my napkin, dabbed at the spill, and said, there it is, the real Lily. Throw a tantrum, and everyone rushes to fix it. That's how it's always been. I turned toward the door. Thank you for dinner. You can't just leave, my mother cried. Actually, I said, hand on the doorknob. And I should have done it a long time ago. As I stepped outside into the cold night air, I felt something uncoil in my chest. Relief. Sharp and clean. The silence of the street was louder than anything they could say. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the forgotten son. I was the man who walked away. I drove for hours that night with no destination in mind. Just the hum of the engine and the echo of my sister's voice chasing me through the dark. Every mile away from that house felt like peeling off another layer of pain I hadn't realized I'd been carrying. I checked into a small roadside hotel, tossed my stained shirt in the trash, and sat on the edge of the bed staring at the wall. For the first time, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt earned. My phone buzzed endlessly. Missed calls, voicemails, texts that swung from guilt to anger to pleading. Ethan, you're overreacting. We didn't mean to upset you. You're still our son. We need to talk about helping the family. I didn't reply to a single one. I needed to breathe without their expectations suffocating me. For once, I wanted my thoughts to belong to me, not to the boy they molded into someone invisible. When I returned to the city, Derek noticed immediately. Men, you look like you've seen a ghost, he said, leaning against my office door. I told him everything. The email mistake, the dinner, the explosion. He listened quietly, his expression somewhere between sympathy and disbelief. When I finished, he nodded slowly. You didn't lose your family that night, he said. You just stopped pretending they were something they weren't. His words hit deeper than I expected. For years, I'd built my success as a silent rebellion, thinking one day they'd see me differently. But they never would. They didn't know how. Their love had always been conditional, rooted in control, guilt, and comparison. The moment I stopped performing, their affection evaporated. I began therapy the next week. My therapist, Dr. Brennan, had the kind of calm that makes you speak before you realize you're unraveling. He asked, "What are you most afraid of now that they know who you really are?" I thought about it. It wasn't fear of losing them. It was fear of being pulled back into the same cycle. The guilt, the appeasement, the quiet acceptance of their imbalance. I told him, I don't want to go back to being the dependable one who's only valued when they need something. He nodded. Then stop being available to them in the old way. Create boundaries and enforce them like your life depends on it, because your peace does. So I did. I drafted an email to my family. It was brief, deliberate, and emotionless. I told them I needed space. I wouldn't be engaging in financial discussions or family emergencies. Any future contact would have to respect that. My father replied with a single word. Understood. My mother sent paragraphs about forgiveness and family unity. Lily didn't reply at all. The silence from her was louder than any argument. Weeks turned into months. The chaos faded. For the first time since childhood, I felt peace. I filled my days with things that had nothing to do with work. Running by the lake, volunteering at a youth program, having dinner with people who saw me as more than a resource. Derek's family invited me to gatherings often, and his mother always insisted I bring nothing. You work too hard. Ethan, just show up, she'd say. The first time I sat at their table, laughing without having to prove my worth, I realized this was what family could feel like. Uncomplicated, kind, real. A few months later, I decided to turn my pain into something useful. I created a scholarship fund named after my grandfather, the Thomas Lawson Initiative, for students who, like me, were putting themselves through school without family support. The fund offered not just money, but mentorship, guidance, and community. When I signed the founding papers, I imagined him beside me, smiling that quiet, proud smile he used to wear when I fixed something without asking for help. The announcement hit the local press. A week later, I received a text from my father. Is this supposed to be some kind of message to us? I didn't respond. Not everything needed a reply. Sometimes silence speaks loudest. By spring, I met someone, Sophia. She was different from anyone I'd dated before. She didn't flinch when I talked about the family mess or the years of invisibility. Families can break you without ever touching you, she said once over coffee. But they can't own who you become. Her empathy wasn't pity, it was understanding. She'd grown up with her own kind of neglect. And together, we learned that healing doesn't come from closure. It comes from choice. Then one morning, Rachel, my financial advisor, called sounding uneasy. Ethan, she said, your sister contacted me directly. She claimed to be your business partner and asked for details about your investments. My stomach dropped. I asked how she found her. Rachel explained Lily had looked up the public records of my company and traced her through professional networks. I thanked her for letting me know. And within hours, my attorney had sent Lily a cease and desist letter. That night, I sat in my office staring out the window, the city lights blurring like memories of a life I no longer wanted to carry. I thought about that dinner, her wine splashing across my shirt, my parents' silence, the way my voice didn't shake when I finally said everything I'd buried for decades. It hadn't been revenge, it was release. I'd mistaken their indifference for strength for too long. The truth was, I'd been starving for validation from people who couldn't give it. I leaned back in my chair and whispered to myself, you don't need them to see you anymore. For the first time, I believed it. 3 months passed before I heard from them again. Long enough for the sting of that Thanksgiving night to dull into a quiet scar. I had started living differently, sleeping better, eating real meals, even taking weekends off. My company was thriving after the acquisition, and I'd begun mentoring young entrepreneurs who reminded me of myself at 18. Hungry, alone, underestimated. The scholarship fund had its first round of applicants, each essay breaking me open in ways therapy never could. Kids working 2 jobs, hiding their struggles behind resilience. Every story was a mirror I didn't know I needed. Then one morning, my mother's name flashed across my phone. Against my better judgment, I answered. Her voice trembled. soft but rehearsed. "Ethan, your father had a mild heart attack. He's stable now. Thank God. He's asking about you." I sat in silence, feeling the tug of obligation and the weight of history collide inside me. "Which hospital?" I asked finally. She told me, relief flooding her tone. Before hanging up, she added, "Maybe this is a sign that we can all start fresh." At the hospital, the antiseptic smell hit me before I even saw him. My father looked smaller, pale against the white sheets, wires snaking around his body. For a second, I saw not the man who dismissed me, but the human beneath the armor of authority. His eyes opened, and when he saw me, something flickered there. Pride, maybe, or guilt. "You came," he said. His voice cracked, and I realized it was the first time I'd ever heard vulnerability in it. "I heard you were sick," I said simply. He nodded, staring at the ceiling. "Life catches up to you," he murmured. I guess I didn't expect it to feel this fast. There was a long silence. I waited for him to bring up money, but he didn't. He just sighed. "You've done well for yourself, Ethan. I didn't make it easy on you, did I?" "No," I said quietly. "You didn't." He gave a faint smile. "Your mother means well. You know, she always thought if she worried less about you, it meant she'd done something right." I wanted to believe that, but I couldn't fully. "She worried about Lily because she couldn't control her. You didn't worry about me because you never tried to understand me." His eyes stayed closed. "Maybe you're right." He looked tired, older than I remembered. "But you turned out better than any of us deserved." I left a bouquet and a brief note with the nurse before I left. "Get well soon. Take care of yourself. No promises. No guilt. Just honesty." That night, I drove home through falling snow, headlights cutting through the white haze. For years, I had wanted him to acknowledge what he'd done, to admit he'd overlooked me, but hearing it now didn't give me the satisfaction I expected. It just gave me peace. Some apologies don't heal the wound, they simply close it. By spring, my life had found a new rhythm. Sophia and I had grown close. Quietly, steadily. She grounded me in a way success never could. When I told her about the hospital visit, she just took my hand and said, "You didn't go for them. You went for you. That's the difference." Her words stayed with me as I continued expanding the mentorship program. We paired young developers with industry veterans, helping them navigate not just code, but confidence. Watching them grow, seeing them light up when they realized their worth. It was like reclaiming every moment I'd been denied recognition. Meanwhile, my mother's texts became gentler, almost human. Pictures of her garden, a recipe she thought I'd like, a simple hope, "You're well." I answered sparingly but kindly. She never mentioned money again. Maybe she'd learned, or maybe she'd just grown tired. My father and I exchanged short messages on birthdays. No more, no less. Lily stayed silent. The cease and desist letter had been the final line in a lifelong pattern. She pushed until she hit a wall, then blamed the wall for standing still. One night, I got a message from a scholarship recipient named Aaron. He wrote, "You don't know what this means to me. My parents think I'm wasting my time learning to code. Your story gives me hope." I sat staring at that message for a long time. The irony wasn't lost on me, that I'd spent years trying to escape my family's neglect, only to become someone who now gave others what I'd needed most: belief. 2 years after the Thanksgiving that changed everything, I stood on stage at a tech conference delivering a keynote about resilience. Cameras flashed, applause echoed, and somewhere in that moment, I felt my grandfather's presence like a quiet hand on my shoulder. I wasn't the forgotten boy anymore. I was the man who refused to let being unseen define him. That night, back home, Sophia curled up beside me and asked, "Do you ever think about going back? Trying again with them?" I thought about it, about the wine stain on my shirt, my mother's tears, my father's quiet regret, Lily's silence. "I think I've already gone back in every way that matters," I said, "and I decided not to stay." She smiled softly. "Then you're finally free." I nodded. "Yeah, I am. The truth is, wealth didn't buy my freedom. Boundaries did. The empire I built wasn't revenge. It was survival turned into purpose. And the peace I have now didn't come from being loved by them, but from loving myself enough to stop begging for it. If you've ever been the invisible one, if your worth has been measured only by what you can give, remember this: family doesn't define you, your choices do. Thank you for listening to my story. Don't forget to subscribe to Vengeance Within for more stories of strength, redemption, and the quiet power of reclaiming your life.